So, good morning, my dear students. Today we are going to talk on a very important topic. This topic is particularly very much relevant for us and as a whole the third world countries. Because the load of this your problem we are going to discuss is much more in our country. So we must have a very thorough knowledge about this subject. And since this problem is more seen in orthopedic practice, day-to-day practice, we must have a very logical approach and a better understanding of the disease. That is why we are going to talk about the skeletal tuberculosis. Thus, karmano adukaraste ma palesu kadasana ma karma phal hetu mate sanjukta karmani. So it is from Gita. It's a book of your philosophy of life, not a religious book. So you have a right for work, not for result. Anyway, what we are going to talk about the tuberculosis of the skeletal tuberculosis, particularly some practical aspects of your skeletal tuberculosis of your spine. We are more talk about the spine tuberculosis, and subsequently we will talk some other part also. So basically you all know about the organism. We are not going to talk to that thing. But what are the stages? Rajdev, what are the stages of tuberculosis? What are the stages? There are three stages basically: primary, secondary and tertiary. We will talk. We are not going to talk about the characteristic of the bacillus. And you are supposed to know this thing. Welcome, Pradeep Kumar. You are supposed to know. We are not talking. We are talking about something very realistic and practical points. So first thing you are supposed to understand that how this organism get entered to your body. We are not talking about the characteristic of the organism, but how it is coming inside the body. What are the roots? Pardon? No. No. Hematogenous is a way of spreading. How it is coming inside your body? There are three. One, airborne, droplets. That is the more common thing. Next thing, oral, gut, the bovine tuberculosis. And another is very rarely, is sometimes directly on the skin. Very rarely directly on the skin. These organisms can come into your body by these three routes. And commonest one is your airborne droplets. That is called. That is why the area where there is more congestion, more unhygienic, and more crowding, these are the potential area of spreading. Why it is more common? That is why. So it is because of the airborne sort of disease droplets is coming. So once it is going inside the body, what are the things it is going to do? We know about the primary complex. You do not know or know? You are supposed to know something basic. That is your pulmonary tuberculosis. What is this? So it is going to cause initially called primary complex. That thing is supposed to know. This primary complex may be there in lung and sometimes in intestine. Bovine tuberculosis is morely commonly seen coming from your milk, and who is not sterile about the pasteurization. And these are the potential candidates who directly go into this intestines may cause your bovine tuberculosis there. The possibility is there. Otherwise, directly on the skin, this is very rare. But otherwise, commonest way of in our country and as a whole throughout the world is the droplet. Then initially why it is coming, it is going to cause the primary focus. Primary focus where? Lung. In which part of the lung? Apical part. Why? Air. Yes, that is true. And sometimes this is complex is formed. Complex is formed and sometimes nearby lymph node may be also involved. Now this stage and subsequent stages depends upon the environment and the defense mechanism of the person. This primary pancreas many a times, most of the time in our country is localized and become calcified. Yes, because of the immunity. Because of the better immunity, this, what happens to this primary complex? It mainly a time get confined. Then there is formation of calcification. Sometimes you may find in the X-ray this calcifications of the primary focus. That is seen also in the brain, calcification. That is also seen in the spine, calcifications. That is one of the important hallmark in X-ray, particularly calcification of your abscess in the spine. We'll talk about it later on. But calcifications matter. Then what next? Next is your secondary. Secondary means if the immune defense mechanism is very poor, it may spread. It may spread throughout the body. That condition is most of the time is called miliary tuberculosis. So if this patient's immunity is very poor, necessarily confinement or your localization of this primary complex is no more there, is bursting out, and it is coming in a hematogenous way and is spreading throughout the body and is being thrown into various lymph nodes, other organs also, including anywhere. These conditions, meningitis, most of the time, it is very common, delayed tubercular meningitis, tubercular other things also. But this is primary, this is secondary. In tertiary, so this miliary tuberculosis is spreading may lodge in certain areas, particularly joints and the bones. This leads to your changes at the area. Subsequently, that is your tertiary tuberculosis. In other words, this tertiary tuberculosis is mostly seen their fingers and dactylitis, or tubercular arthritis, or tubercular your spinal problems. So this is tertiary. So in nutshell, actually this is how this spreading is taking place. Your primary focus is more important. Localization of this focus and subsequent calcifications of this area is a hallmark in better immune persons, and it is localized there. But if the immunity is poor, it may spread miliary, then it may lodge in the certain areas, particularly in joints and bones and there. That leads to a tertiary type of your tuberculosis, in other words. So in bone, there is never any possibility of directly coming to the organism. So direct inoculations of this or direct contact of the organism is never possible. It is coming through either through the intestines or through the lung. So primary station is somewhere there, and bone is involved always next to it, never directly. So it is spreading from there, the primary source, never at the primary location area. So bone is always secondarily or tertiarily involved, never directly. ठीक है? So now question arises, that is your way of spreading. Now 2-3 points you must tell me. It is a bacillus? Yes or no? Normally all the bacteria or organisms, particularly, they release some toxin. There are two types of toxins they used to release. One is called endotoxin, another is called exotoxin. Yes or no? And these are the toxins being released by the organisms to initiate the process of pathogenicity. Now, you tell me, what is this toxin being released by tubercular bacillus? Can anybody tell me? Have you ever heard of any toxin released by the tubercular bacillus? Yes or no? No. Tubercular bacillus does not have any toxin to release to initiate the process of pathogenicity. That is a very tricky question sometimes being asked. If it is no toxin coming out, then how it initiate the process of inflammation? This is because of hypersensitivity reactions to the wall of your tubercular bacillus. Yes, this is hypersensitivity. That is why it does not release. That is why there are certain things I am talking may overlap. Subsequently you will find this importance. while there is a toxin being released by the organisms, you will find in the joints or any bony part, the destruction is more. Yes? So sometimes Staphylococcus aureus said to be most common organism being causing this osteomyelitis. In those situations, just remember, you will find there is more destruction in the area. Why? Because it's toxin. Unlike in case of tubercular bacillus, there is no toxin being released. This is a hypersensitive type of reaction that is initiate the process of fever. That is why there is no toxin. That is why you will find less extraction in case of tuberculosis rather than your other osteomyelitis, bacterial osteomyelitis, where you will find more destruction because of toxin. So this part should be clear. They doesn't release in toxin by the hypersensitive reaction of the wall of liver that initiate the process. Now, certain important typical question. Now, what I talked about the primary your focus. What exactly happens there? This is important. Sometimes you are supposed to understand this thing because it is also the understanding because while you are doing the biopsy, what exactly you are trying to see? What exactly you try to see in the biopsy? That was initially because I am bringing the subject biopsy here because what exactly is there is will be reflected there under microscope. So what is there? Tubercle bacillus. So it forms a tubercle. Yes or no? This tubercle central caseation is there. Central necrotization. Tubercle, it forms a tubercle which is centrally necrotic. Periphery there is lymphocytes. And what are the other D-diagnostic or D-important cells which is surrounding this bacillus? Can anybody tell me? Yes? Correct. Yes. Giant cell is also important. Giant cell is important. Lymphocyte is there. Giant cell is there. But what is more important? The presence of epithelial cell. It's a conglomeration of your lymphocyte actually they form a big cell. This is one of the important biopsy hallmark to say it is a tuberculosis. Why so? Because caseations may be there sometime in other pathology also. And interestingly, most of the time in biopsy, you cannot find the organism. That is why even doing the biopsy also, many times biopsy fail to give a positive result by the pathologist. Now on what basis they are giving? Actually, most of the time, the presence of epithelial cells is the diagnostic points to say it is a case of tuberculosis. So epithelial cell is very important. So you try to understand. Why I am bringing this subject here? Because biopsy, what you actually see, you do not want to find a organism there. If you get an organism, that is very well and good. But organism presence is very, very negligible. Hardly you will find the organism there. That is why PCR and other tests are coming up. Basically, what are remnants of this organism is there, amplifications of this thing can be done to say that this is actually tubercle bacillus. This PCR means basically what? Basically what? So genetic sequence is there, you find, then from this genetic multiple. So that means if you find a finger of a person, from this finger you can make out this body of the person. So one from the small thing you can get it. That is exactly happening here. The PCR actually what remnants is left behind. So you can go amplifications of this from the sequence, genetic sequence, and then you can know that this is the organism there. But hardly you will find the acid fast bacillus in this. If you get it, that is 100% true. There is no doubt that if you get the organism, that is 100% true, that is your case of tuberculosis. But very rarely you can get it. So that is why many times even biopsy report fails to give a conclusive diagnosis. This is a true picture. So caseation is there. So that is important, you are supposed to understand. Okay? Now, let us talk about something about the skeletal tuberculosis, spine tuberculosis today. Something related to spine. So you know around 10% to 50% cases are having extraskeletal tuberculosis. So extrapulmonary tuberculosis. So extrapulmonary tuberculosis includes lymph node, other organism also, any part, even pericardium, meningitis. You said that tuberculosis is one of the disease which can affect the human body from top to toe. Only probably exclusion is here in the nail. It says so. Only exclusion is your hairs and the nail. Probably other all parts are involved. Yes, so that is why you tuberculosis find from the top, meningitis, ocular tuberculosis, eye tuberculosis, anywhere, bones, even lung is the primary, and then the pericardium also. Then even if you go down the intestine also, you will find tuberculosis anywhere. Then comes to your skeletal tuberculosis. So what is the percentage of skeletal tuberculosis? Around 2 to 3%. So out of these 100 cases, around 2 to 3% cases are skeletal tuberculosis. Out of these 2 to 3%, 50% tuberculosis are happening in the spine. Then next to spine is your hip, and next to hip is your knee. Next to knee is your elbow, ankle, elbow. So this is the sequence. So 2 to 3% are skeletal tuberculosis, out of which 50% are involving in spine. Next to spine is your hip, then knee, some ankle, and elbow. Sometimes the sequence is like this, but you have to know the sequence is commonly involved in your spine. Now next question is, which part of the spine? Can anybody tell me which part of the spine? Yes, why thoracolumbar? Why thoracolumbar is more common? Arnav, welcome. We welcome you, Arnav, Panda. So we are discussing about the tuberculosis of the spine. The question arises, which part of the spine is commonly involved? Which part of the spine is commonly involved? The commonly involved spine is the thoracolumbar spine. Now, why thoracolumbar spine is commonly involved? Can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me why thoracolumbar spine is commonly involved? So you have to know. Next to that, the cervical spine, thoracic spine, even sacroiliac joint, so many parts are involved. But most of the time, we encounter in day-to-day practice, we have seen that this thoracolumbar spine is commonly involved. You are supposed to know why so. So why so? One is this is the area where is the meeting point of the two curvatures. So there is more stress and strain. Number one. Number two is your proximity to the visceral guts, which may be the source of your infections may be coming to that. Number three is your approximation or closer to your what is that called cisterna chyli. Cisterna chyli is a station for your lymphatics, limbs. So it is one of the source through which it may come. Number two, third is the presence of the Battson's plexus. Also is said the Battson's plexus in the spine venous drainage, which is dependent upon the your pressure gradient. Not there is no valve there. In the Battson's plexus, the important is that there is no valve. So the flow of your venous flow, the spine is entirely dependent on the pressure gradient. So it may go up, it may go down. So it depends upon the pressure gradient of the area. So these things you are supposed to know. Now, so this is the area where there is more stress strain. This is the area where two more curvatures, meeting of two curvatures. That is why there is a curvature point, there is more load. Proximity to the guts, proximity to cisterna chyli, and also it says that the presence of your Battson's plexus is also another contributory factors to it. Now again, in the spine, which part of the spine is commonly involved? Which spine of the spine is commonly involved? It is your paradiscal. Now question arises, why paradiscal is commonly involved? Why paradiscal part is commonly involved? why peridiscal GC? So if you go with the development of the spine, you will find this is a common blood supply, so So common blood supply for the peridiscal region. So that is why the hematogenous plate, it will space body adjacent area. 1 point. Number 2, anything more? Peridiscal. Next to peridiscal is your, what are the other sides of the body? Which part of the other parts of the is involved? One is called anterior to the body. Number 3 is your called central part of the body of the body. Anterior, peridiscal, anterior, central, and then comes to your appendiceal. Appendiceal is your part which is given appendices. So pedicles, lamina, spinous process, joints, all these things are appendiceal part. So in I am talking lot of things statistically. The one is the area which is commonly involved in thoracolumbar spine. In the thoracolumbar spine also it is the peridiscal area. The reason is explained. Then comes your anterior part of the body. Then it is called central part of the body. Then it is called peridiscal. Another thing is nowadays coming up. Another point is there. So pen vertebral. It says both front and the appendiceal part is also involved. This is a very rare combination, may be seen very rarely. But as such, the involvement of the peridiscal area is quite less. The involvement of the peridiscal area is quite less. Yes? Yes. Now while you are talking about this, now next, what is the other sequences of events take place? So in the pathology, if you see, there are two things may happen to it. Now organism is coming there, it definitely initiates the process of inflammation there. Now what will happen depends upon the immunity of the person also. In certain cases you will find there is more caseation. There is less immunity, there is more destructions, there is more caseations, more pus formation. One group. Another group you will find there is a granulation tissue is there, but pus formation is less. It all depends upon the immunity of the person. There are certain examples also where there is a dry tuberculosis, there is Zika, and soldiers you will find dry. There is no caseations, nothing but dryness. So there is various forms of pathology of tuberculosis also. So it all eternally depends upon the immunity of the persons. So if the immunity is poor, there is formation of caseations more, destruction is more. Yes? Then it comes your another group where the granulation tissue is more, but the pus formation is less. And the other variation, as I mentioned, is sometimes dryness may be there, dry Zika, tuberculosis Zika of the soldiers may be there, because all depends upon your immunity of the persons. So this is one. Then what happens to it then? If it is happening whole, then what are the clinical things happening to the persons? Though the book says that there is classical symptoms like your fever, even rise of temperature, loss of appetite, night sweating, weight loss, all these are. But these things are not commonly seen in maximum patients. Probably it is only the 20 to 30% of the cases you probably find. And very surprisingly, you will know that this spinal tuberculosis is mostly seen in young adults. You will find sometimes a patient is coming to you repeatedly, young, healthy adult, is coming to you in OPD, having some pain there. I have seen few cases there. They are initially okay, fine, then subsequently while he is coming 1 or 2 times, then you necessarily go for the investigation, find there is destruction of 1 or 2 vertebrae. He is not yet, there is no symptoms of neurological involvement. But this involvement is basically because of your, so that is why the feelings, the customary feelings we do have, that is mostly debilitated persons, weak, energetic, no. Sometimes young, adult, active, well, healthy persons may also have been suffering from tuberculosis. though commonly it is the victims is mostly the elderly patients, or because of the low immunity or poor nutrition are the contributing factors. So once the patient is coming to you, you will find that these clinical features may not be there. And it is true to see that the classical feature is mostly seen only 20 to 30% or sometimes smaller groups also. Others are mostly not having that of your classical your generalized symptoms. Classical generalized symptoms are really less. So necessarily while the patient is coming to you, you subject the patients for the investigation. So investigations, what are the things is supposed to come up? The things which supposed to come up is the mostly we will look for the hemoglobin, ESR should be erased, CRP marginally may be increased, but we are more concerned about the ESR and other things. What about the X-ray? X-ray most of the time in early stage is negative. Very good X-ray quality X-ray may show some sort of osteopenic changes there. Paradiscal osteopenia in spine. But to have the destructive features positive in the spine and X-ray, it takes a lot of time, sometimes 5 months, 6 months. And you all know that it needs to have at least 30% destructions of the bone to have a positive impact in the general normal X-ray. So normal X-rays are most of the time very much silent in early stage. Very good quality X-ray may show some of the osteopenic changes. But the classical features we used to say about the destructions of the paradiscal area and the reduction of the disc space is mostly seen in the late features. Probably in between, one can also notice that the margins of the disc is margins of the end of the vertebra and end plate, very important. In early stage, osteopenia and destruction of the disc and the reduction of the height and other destructive features, if it is positive, that is the other thing. But in between, another interesting finding is mostly you find that there is a rough, the margins of this here become puffy. Its distinction is become this. So this is one of the very early signs you find, radiological X-ray, plain X-ray, I am talking about this plain X-ray. So the loss of your sharpness of the margins is an interesting findings there. So necessarily while the X-ray is clinical features are predominant, patient is having pain, X-ray is silent, you go for the CT scans and MRI. And these things is going to tell you all about this thing. In the CT scan, you will get all the destructions. But what are the classical radiological finding in late cases of X-ray, simple X-ray? You will find the rarifications, destructions of the vertebra. Instead of destruction, you will find fragmentation. Actually, most of the time, the body involved go for fragmentation rather than destructions. What is fragmentation? What is destructions? Destructions in the bone is mostly seen by osteolysis. Mostly seen in a pyogenic infections where there is release of toxins that leads to osteolysis. But in case of your tuberculosis, is mostly find in these fragmentations because of your involvement on the bone that leads to your less destruction but more fragmentations. And as such, one of the most characteristic hallmark in the X-ray of tuberculosis is the how to differentiate a X-ray of a pyogenic infection that of a tubercular infection. The tubercular infections you will less find the bony reactions. This is a very interesting thing. Sometimes even you may get a questions like this, that how to differentiate the pyogenic infection with that of tubercular infections. In tubercular infections, the destruction is a bit less, but pyogenic infections, the destruction is very pronounced. Interesting point in case of pyogenic infection is that there is bony reactions, means you will find newborn formation, other things are more. Unlike in case of tuberculosis, you will less or do not find newborn formations. This is a very interesting thing. In the long bone also, but other thing also, while there are infections, the body tries to have this your remodeling capacity. You will find involucrum is also coming up. These sort of pictures are very rarely seen in case of tuberculosis. Unlike if there is superimposed infection or the bacterial infection in case of tuberculosis, probably you may get it. But otherwise, this is very silent. That is a very interesting differentiating point between the tubercular osteomyelitis and that of your pyogenic osteomyelitis. So pyogenic you will find rare newborn formation, bony reactions which are not seen in case of your tuberculosis. Yes, some other, okay, I am talking about the X-ray, so I would like to add something more. In the X-ray, what are the other things? Importantly, the extractions, okay. Subsequently, late cases in the X-ray, you will find the reduction to the discs. That is one, this is late finding, not the early finding. Besides, you may get in case of thoracic area, there is pus formation. Pus formation. There are two types of characteristic pus formation is seen in case of your bird nest. Have you ever heard of bird nest? Bird nest. Bird nest is your saliva. Bird nest. There are two types of your pus formations in case of X-ray. Earlier days, these are very important thing because most of the investigations are mostly dependent on the X-ray, not CT scan or MRI. It was not invented. So how do you characterize it? There are two types of character. One is a flux formation sort of pus, which is not intention. Another is the fusiform characteristics. So fusiform type. There are two types of your pus formation mostly in thoracic area. One where it's called bird nest type, another is called fusiform characteristics type. Yes, so that is pus formation. Regarding the X-ray, in the early stage, rarifications or your osteopenia. Yes, subsequently destructions if there is late pain, but losing of sharpness of the marginal vertebra is an important sign. Then depending upon your involvement, you may get the destruction, anterior destructions or paradiscal destructions. Another characteristic destruction which is in case of central part of your disc vertebral involvement. What is this classical known as? It's called pes plana. Pes plana means in case of classical types of your central vertebral involvement. So central part of the vertebra is destructed, but margins are still intact, disc space is still intact, and the vertebra get collapse. Collapse like it is only two layers, nothing else. Body is no more existing. These conditions characteristically seen in case of central type of course, pes plana may be seen in other conditions also, other conditions also. But classically, pes plana is a classical your signs of your tuberculosis in central type of tuberculosis. So, this is another classical thing. So, in case of pus formation, two bird nest, fusiform. Destructions, as I said, in comparative scale is different. Then again, central type is a different type, late case, not early case. And of course, if this appendicell is very difficult to differentiate from the ear. But most of the time, pedicule involvement or lamina or sometimes is finance process. And very rare conditions, you may get involvement of the anterior part as well. But mostly it is the anterior part of the vertebra common rather than the posterior part of the appendicell part. Now, in the CT scan, these things are more pronounced, nicely seen. But most characteristics, as I said, is the fragmentations of the ear, not destructions. Pus formation sometimes may be detected in case of pus or ear also. But in the pus, what is more important in late cases, calcifications of the pus. So calcifications of the pus in case of tuberculosis is a hallmark. This calcification is rarely seen in case of your pyogenic tuberculosis, pyogenic abscess. So calcifications of this part is here. In the MRI, it is all good, everything is good, but what is more important, the MRI speaks about the abscess and surrounding soft tissues. The involvement in the early stage, of course, MRI speaks so many things about the edema and other things, identifications. Early stage, early detections, MRI is very useful. Very useful. In late cases, it is seen that the abscess formation and surrounding involvement that speaks, because it may be confusing with the other differential diagnosis, but the presence of pus and involvement of your paradiscal, involvement of paraspinal muscles are very characteristic in case of MRI. T2 type, you look in white color, white is blue. Yes, because fluid, so that is white. So that is interesting point there. So in case of MRI, these things are very important. Of course, MRI speaks in very sensitive, very early stage, and it is also important to look for skinning of the whole spine, because though there is statistical variations is there, so 1 to 15% patients may have adjacent area or nearby, non-contiguous area. This is called skip lesions. So skip lesions are also seen in case of tuberculosis, where non-contiguous area may be involved. Yes, so the skip lesions, that is mostly nicely seen in case of your MRI done screening of the whole spine. So that will help you to know. And also MRI can tell you about the conditions of the cord and the compression on the cord. Compression on the cord. Compression about the cord. Now, this is one. Now, nowadays, of course, PET scan is coming up. PET scans help into positron emission. Yeah? How it is helping is the positron emissioners are mounted on the INS and rifampicin, then in given the parent. So INS had affinity to the tuberculosis. So they will lose there, and then they will go help with the detections of this here. That is another way nowadays coming up to have a confirmed diagnosis, because if you are mounting the INS and rifampicin, that will not detect the area where there is tubercular bacillus or tubercular infection is going on. An emitter of positron emitters are loaded on it, so that will help you to detect the early tuberculosis by positron emissions nowadays coming up. Yes, so there is so many investigations. But what is more important to understand is that nowadays guidelines are there that you try to detect the infections with biopsy. So in earlier days, these treatment protocols was mostly dependent on the clinical or radiological diagnosis. But of late, the stress is more on the biopsy guided. CT guided biopsy is most important one. Nowadays it is the hallmark, and the protocol you need to follow how to do it. Then a gene expert test is important nowadays, because more and more cases of resistance is coming up. And also gene expert test helps us to do an early diagnosis also. Two things, one is diagnosis, another is resistance. Two things can be done very easily and quickly. But of now, the importance is always going to go for invasive type of your CT guided biopsy. That is the idea. Because why is it happening so? Because there are so many other conditions which may mimic the tuberculosis. And this thing, if you are empirically giving treatment on the clinical or radiological basis, there are some persons who are actually not tuberculosis but getting tubercular drug on empirical basis. This is no more encouraged. This is no more encouraged. It is always ideal to prove it on microscopes. So that is why nowadays the stress is on. Though there is so many tests, the ELISA test nowadays is not being considered as a part of your investigations today. Most stress is given on the biopsy CT scan. And if it is proved, that is why it is ideal to go for it, because the brucellosis, some other even low-grade infections or the pyogenic infections may also mimic, or sometimes even some malignant conditions may also have similar pictures there. And there, on the basis of your clinical radiological criteria, is not encouraged. So today's concept is to prove it organisms. That is the idea. But on the other hand, another 2 points I need to add it, that in case of silent tuberculosis, you know that neurological deficit may or may not take place. There are two types of neurological deficits. One is called acute, another is called chronic. One is gradual, one is called sudden onset. What is this sudden onset and gradual? Which is good, which is bad? The sudden onsets are dangerous. So if you look for, you know that in a tubercular, there is gradings. Depending upon the compressions of the cord, progressive neurological deficit take place. You know about this thing? So initially there is some sort of your upper motor neuron type of findings will be there. Gradually there may be involvement so much so that the motor neuron sensory deficiency is taking place. And subsequently it happens so that he may go for paraparesis followed by paraplegia, paraplegia in extension, paraplegia in flexions. These are the other things, grading, you all know. Depends upon the extrapyramidal tract and pyramidal tract involved. So that is a grading of spinal tuberculosis, post-paraplegia, whatever we say. So it depends upon the involvement of the cord and the findings. Initially patients has been feeling, but you will find your jerks are exaggerated, clonus is there. Subsequently he will have more and more difficulties, and time will come he may go for paraplegia in extension on the pyramidal tract and flexions in extrapyramidal tract. So this speaks also about the involvement of the cord and subsequent gradings. But what my point is that there are depending upon the compressions, there are two types of your neurological. One is called gradual onset, another is called sudden onset. The gradual onset is what? If it is gradually compressing it, or in acute onset. Somebody say the acute onset. Somebody say in the acute tuberculosis. So this is another thing. But if a sudden onset tuberculosis, paraplegia is there, that is a bad sign. Sudden onset are mostly a mechanical form, because your osteophyte or not osteophyte, some of the fragments of your kyphosis angle, they may cause direct compressions of the cord, and it may lead to your late invariably it is a late, but it may be sudden, but as its outcomes are bad. Final results are not good. And sometime, of course, in this case, you will find there may be involvement of the vessel also. Particularly the thoracic area, you know, 6 to 12, this area mostly contributed by the artery of Adam-Twist. And if this artery is somehow involved, somehow damaged, that will lead to a permanent sudden onset tuberculosis and a death prognosis. On the other hand, if the gradual onset is mostly soft, soft means it is because of the granulation disorder, the abscess that causes compressions. So if it is happening so that it is because of the gradual onset, it indicates that the pressure effect is on the cord because of this your soft structures like your abscess and the granulation tissue. Their prognosis is good. Their prognosis is good. So that you have to understand what is sudden onset, what is gradual onset. Gradual onset good, sudden onset is always bad. Then subsequent treatment protocols which usually follow the middle part regime, we all know. Middle part initially you have to give the treatments, subsequently follow up. If it is improving, well and good, not improving, you may go for surgical intervention. That is the basic protocol. But another group of surgeons are there, they were led by Hodgkin from Hong Kong. He used to do extensive surgery and do fixations, removing all these tissues. But as such, you try to understand that tubercle bacillus is not treated by the surgery. Surgery is adjunct to it, but the organism which is going to kill is the antitubercular drug. So antitubercular drug is the primary choice. Surgery is adjunct to it. If necessary, you may do it. But in middle part regime, what is more principle is that you give the treatments, follow the patients, not improving, go for surgery. Another group they used to do it because it happens. It happens that it may that may happen. So that is why That is why you have to follow this thing like this. So you have then you have to go for your anti-tubercular drugs. Drug is the most important thing. And how long it is continuous? There is an intensive phase, then there is your follow-up phase or your continuation phase. The intensive phase drugs are different and is given 4 to 4 months, usually 3 to 4 months. Then subsequently, but on an average, throughout the world, consensus is to continue the tubercular drug for not less than 1 year. Give rest, mobilizations depending upon your neurological status. But as such, initial treatment is like this. Initially, you have to start like this medicine like this, and subsequently you go for the continuation phase for at least not less than 1 year. So nowadays it is said that somehow it may only continue for 9 months, but for practical purpose and the consensus is to go for not less than 1 year, sometimes even more than that. I need to do periodical follow-up with the X-ray and other findings also. The hematogenous findings, blood findings, radiological findings, all have to be corroborated to come to a point when to end up the treatment protocol. The surgery as such nowadays, earlier days, there are two groups of surgeons are here. One who go for anteriorly, other go for posteriorly. Anterior is nowadays the popularity is coming down, but as such it is true fact that most of the time tuberculosis is anterior material because the body. So if you can address it from anterior where it is exactly happening, it is well and good. But this is not a convenient way to approach. Many times it is a hectic surgery, it is a huge surgery. You have to go thoracotomy. You need to do thoracotomy. You need to do thoracotomy. Then morbidity and mortality rate is quite high. And it is not a very easy procedure for the surgeon. But nowadays people are going for the posterior, and from posterior also you try to address the anterior pathology and instrumentations as well. Instrumentation posteriorly, and from the posterior lateral side you may go anteriorly and do the lesson there. But one thing you have to understand that what you are going to do. If you are removing lot of necrotic material, that is not a good thing. So if you do evacuate, that you have to replace. If you do only drainage, that's a different. There are two things that there. So if only the abscess you are draining and leaving behind all the things which is there, you have so many necrotic tissues there, it is true. But if you remove all the things there, bone, fragments and other things, then you will leave a big vacuum there. And if you are doing instrumentation also, but there is no support until it is going to collapse. Yes? So it is said, it is earlier days the concept was may not be that anti-tubercular may not penetrate this thing, but it is not true. There is so many studies saying that this penetration of the necrotic material and the tubercular abscess is good. Tetracycline based studies done by your Tulisa and other as proof there is a good penetration of the drug. So if you want to do extensive surgery, you have to replace with some case or some bony structure and give a support for mechanical support with instrumentation either anteriorly or posteriorly. But as of now, today pictures are popularizing the more convenient by family happy with the posterior instrumentations and try to address the pathology anteriorly from the posterior side also. That is the concept nowadays. That is more convenient for the surgeon because most of the surgeons are more comfortable to work from posterior side rather than from the anterior side. So there is a laminectomy is never a choice. Laminectomy without instrumentation is not encouraged because these structures which is lying posteriorly, these are normal structures most of the time. The pathology they are anterior. So if the anterior is gone and posterior also removing a lot of things, probably it leads to a more instability. But if you are doing so for decompression purpose, you need to support the instrumentation and necessary fusion also. So that is your guideline of skeletal tuberculosis. Shortly, we have not gone very deeply in this subject, but it's an outline. We will talk on this subject later on again, particularly for hip also, particularly for knee also. We'll talk. But this is a basic outline. You're supposed to know what is the organism. You must know the organism characteristic also, how it is primarily coming to the lung or your gut, what is secondary stage, in primary what is tubercle there, what is characteristic of the tubercle, and then also the reflections in the microscopical pictures. And then subsequently in tertiary stage how the bones are involved. So many things are involved, but the spine is more common. Most of the time the 50% of skeletal tuberculosis are mostly thoracolumbar area. And out of that again the paradiscal area which is commonly involved. And so many things may happen. So you are supposed to have better idea. We have though not gone very deeply, but it will give some insight to the subject, and we will continue in future on this subject more deeply, more thoroughly. Thank you.